Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to graph the function h of x equals the square root of x. Now, this version of the function is called the parent function, and the graph we are going to graph is called the parent graph. And what that means is this is our basic starting point when it comes to the square root of x, and every other square root of x graph that we will draw will be based on this one. Okay, so now, like we talked about in the past, anytime you want to graph a function and you don't know what that function looks like, you can simply make a t-chart. Okay, so let's do that. Let's make us a t-chart. And so in the first column I'm going to put the x values, and in the second column I'm going to put my y values. My y values are the same thing as my f of x values. Okay, so let's pick some inputs. Now, since I am going to be taking the square root of the inputs, I want to pick inputs that are easy to take the square root of. So why don't we start with 0, and then let's take the square root of 4, and let's take the square root of 9, and let's take the square root of 16. Alright, so I'm putting those as my inputs because they are very easy to take the square root of. Alright, and so here's what we're doing. We're saying h of 0 equals the square root of 0. So h of 0, well, what is the square root of 0? It equals 0. So when I input 0, my output is 0. Okay, so now let's do 4. So I'm going to take the square root of 4, which equals 2. So when I input 4, my output is 2. Alright, and then when I input 9 in for x right here, I'm saying what is the square root of 9? And that equals 3. And then finally 16. When I input 16 in for x right here, I'm asking what is the square root of 16? And that is 4. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to take these values and we need to graph them on this coordinate plane right here. Okay, so let's do that. So my first point I need to graph is the point 0, 0, which is the origin. Okay, why don't I graph it in red so you can see it better. Alright, so let's look back. And the next point I'm going to graph is the point 4, 2. So let's do that. I'm going to graph the point right 4 and up 2, which is right here. Notice I went right 1, 2, 3, 4 on the x-axis and up 2 on the y-axis. Up 2. Now let's zoom back out and see our next point. The next point we need to graph is the point 9, 3. That tells me to go right 9 and up 3. And so let's go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and up 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to put a point at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and up 3 right there. Now 16 is not on my x-axis. But you can kind of see the shape of the graph. But why don't we plug into a calculator? Since the farthest right my graph goes is 12, let's get a calculator and plug in 12. Okay, so what I did is I went in the calculator and I plugged in the square root of 12. So 12 is my input. When I did, my output is 3.464. So I'm going to graph the point right 12 and up 3.464. So let's move over here, and we're going right 12 and up 3.46, which is going to be right in this range right there. And so you can kind of see the shape of the graph. Let me see if I can draw it clearly for you. You can kind of see the shape of the graph looks sort of like this. And that is the parent graph for the function y equals the square root of x. Or you could say f of x equals the square root of x. Or you could say h of x equals the square root of x. Okay, all that we're saying when we say f of x or h of x is that this is a function. Okay, and so here's what the graph of square root of x looks like.